So we got to talk about the Oklahoma City Thunder and San Antonio Spurs series because there's a bunch of hullabaloo going around, right? So last time we talked about this series, it was right after game one, a thriller, double overtime special, one of the greatest playoff games we've ever seen in NBA history, and what many people will remember as Wemby's coming out party. However, since then, the conversation and dialogue around this series has completely spiraled out of control. Some people are obsessed about physicality, others are frustrated with the officiating, and then you have this growing discussion about Wemby and his all-around impact. But while everyone is talking about the contact whistle and how many shot attempts Wemby is getting up, there is a much bigger reason to why the Oklahoma City Thunder have taken back control of the series, as after 3 games, they now lead 2-1. But before we get to that, we are going to talk about some of the other things because I do believe it is very fascinating. And quite frankly, I know many of you all want my thoughts on what's exactly happening so far in this series, especially after game one, where I very optimistically talked about the San Antonio Spurs. So first, the physicality. And I'm going to be honest with you, bro, I don't know why so many people are in denial about what they're watching, but this is clearly one of the most physical series we've seen in a very, very long time. After game one, it seemed as if Isaiah Hartenstein was going to be unplayable, only logging in 12 minutes of action in a double overtime game. However, since then, he has been one of OKC's biggest X factor, and that's because of the level of physicality he is allowed to play on Victor Wembanyama. Whether it's fighting for post positioning, grabbing his jersey and arm when Wemby's going up for a rebound, or just outright pushing him out of the way so he doesn't contest a shot, the name of the game for Hartenstein right now is to be as physical as possible with Wemby. The best way to slow him down is to wear him down. This is a philosophy that we saw in the previous series with the Minnesota Timberwolves. Julius Randle would use a somewhat Gortat screen to move Wemby out of the way, carving out some space for some of his guards to drive at the basket without having to worry about Wemby contesting. And that same type of philosophy and physicality has been carried over into this series as well. Unfortunately, the result of that level of physicality not only was an elbow to Naz Reid from Wemby in frustration, but also a degree of physicality that has been adopted from other Spurs players in retaliation, such as Stephon Castle and Dylan Harper, that has now resulted in Shai basically getting mauled and grabbed before he could even touch the ball as well. And I'm gonna just be honest with y'all, between Wemby getting pushed around and grabbed and Shai being just like torso just getting pulled and a bunch of other physical play from like Lou Dort and Caruso, there's points and times in this series where I'm asking myself, bro, what sport am I watching? Because it's not basketball. This is clearly not basketball. And I'm gonna just be honest with you all as I continue to just kind of riff for a second. Bro, I am tired of people acting as if like, oh, this is just playoff basketball. This is just normal. No, it is not. Stop acting as if like what we're seeing in this series is what's happening in the other series with the Cavaliers and Knicks. It's not the same thing. I just got done watching game 3 of that series, and there was a play where someone like pushed someone for a rebound, and in my mind, I'm like, that's clearly a foul. But if that would happen in the OKC and Spurs series, that would not have gotten called. So this idea that, oh, this is just playoff basketball, when every other series we've watched, it does not look like this. I don't know why we're sitting here lying to ourselves about it whatsoever. Like, stop it, bro. I have to go back and go into like mid 2000s Pistons and Pacers or 90s Knicks and Heat series for me to see this level of physical play on both sides. Like we had to stop. Also, even though I do believe it is fair to say that Wemby in his first attempt as a postseason run, he's going to have to learn to play through contact. I also hate when people say all the other greats had to do it. Respectfully, Curry did get grabbed. LeBron did get hit over the head when he was driving to the basket. Same with Jordan. But I'm going to be honest with you, even when I go back and look at some of the 90s, because I saw Charles Barkley talking about, oh, I got kissed harder than this. Respectfully, Chuck, stop. I've seen some of your footage. No, there just is not anyone except for Shaq himself that is getting pushed and moved and dragged as often as Wemby, because it's not just happening offensively like it is for Curry and LeBron and for most stars. It's happening on both sides of the floor. They are literally spending energy, having an individual player use basically all of his fouls to not only prevent Wemby from scoring, but also prevent him from having any type of defensive impact. No one is not running around shoving Curry out of defensive stances. That's not happening. No one is going out of their way to grab Michael Jordan and preventing him consistently from grabbing a rebound, because he's normally not in that position in the first place. And so even though, yes, it is true, you normally normally would tell a star, oh, just play through contact. This is not normal contact. And again, I think Wemby still has to learn to do so, but I think it's disingenuous and quite frankly, it is irresponsible to not accurately assess this similar to what we saw from Shaquille O'Neal, because that's what we're watching right now. It's a testament to how great he is, but we do need to be fair and honest about the level of physicality we're watching from Wemby or Wemby receive, because it's not normal. Which then brings us to the second talking point, and that's the officiating and flopping. Look, my stance is very simple, very dry, mundane. If you're going to allow them to be physical, then let them be physical. Don't call anything. I don't want to sit here and watch what happened in game 3 in particular in that third quarter, where it was like a 32-minute long third quarter. I don't want to see that. I think most people do not want to see it. And the reality is we're here now. So let them just play. And I don't even think Shai all around in terms of flopping has really been that bad, even though we'll talk about it later on in this segment. But what is much more frustrating to watch is that once the tone is set and we've all agreed that we're going to watch physical basketball for however many quarters a game is going to last, I don't want to see Lou Dort cartwheel over screens. I don't want to see Isaiah Joe flop and fall on the floor when somebody's just standing next to him. I don't want to see shooters lean into a defender and try to get a foul call. And I even say this for the Spurs as well. I don't want to see Stephon Castle drive to the lane and shake his head and whiplash himself back and forth to try to get a call. I don't want to see that. Now, to be fair, most of these incidences are not being called as a foul, to be fair. But it's just frustrating to see, especially on the OKC side of things, where physicality can be initiated and we're just not following through with it. It's almost as if like you sat there, you punched me, and then all of a sudden, as soon as I retaliate, you're acting as if like you didn't initiate this whole contact. Like, I'm fine with watching physical basketball, but let's play it. Don't cop out in the middle of you deciding to agree upon this. And it's even more frustrating when you actually do manipulate the referees and they call something like we saw in game 2, where Hartenstein is grabbing Wemby, he's getting physical with him, and as soon as Wemby retaliates with his own level of physicality, then out of nowhere, Hartenstein is just jerking his body back trying to get a foul call, and they end up calling it. Now, again, to be fair, they did challenge it, they reviewed it and overturned it, but don't call the foul in the first place. Like, I just don't want to see it. And that's where it becomes much more frustrating. If we've already agreed to play physical basketball, then don't cop out and start flopping all over the place, which is why Shai and even Wemby has adopted this ideology as well. They both started to flop even more as this series progressed. And honestly, I don't really blame them. Personally speaking, the reason why I'm not that vocal on flopping, and you can check some of my other videos about this as well, the reason why I'm not that critical of like great offensive players flopping is because majority of the time they're actually getting fouled. And while defensive players are able to get away with a lot of illegal contact, especially in the playoffs, what ends up happening is the just natural impact that a great offensive player would normally have, because they're better than the defender that's in front of them, it gets tapered. And so the only way that a great offensive player can continue to have that level of impact is if they can level the playing field a bit and make sure that the fouls that are actually occurring get called. And so, yes, the tumbling from Shai on the floor is frustrating. It's even more frustrating when there's just not a call at all, or on the other side of the floor, Wemby's not getting any calls, and then all of a sudden you think you need to get the calls even though Wemby's not. Like, yes, that is frustrating, but I do understand when Shai and Wemby have to flop their way into the free throw line because they are actually getting fouled. And the only way to make sure that the playing field is even between both offense and defense is if they can continue to be as impactful as possible, but they have to do so by making sure the defense actually just plays them straight up and not foul them. So yes, I think that's fine at the end of the day. But Lou Dort, Stephon Castle, Alex Caruso, Devin Vassell, like everybody else, where y'all doing a bunch of extra grabbing, I don't want to see you flop. Keldon Johnson, don't want to see you flop. I don't want to see y'all flopped. Shai, Wemby, I'm cool with it. Everyone else, I don't want to see it because at the end of the day, Shai and Wemby, their impact is what's being altered the most. And they have to figure out a way to consistently be impactful beyond just short stretches throughout a game. And speaking of which, that brings us to the third point, and that is Wemby's overall impactfulness. Now, I'm not going to act as if like I know Wemby well enough to know his conditioning. I mean, look at me. What do I know about conditioning? However, I do believe, and I think it is fair to say, that not only the level of minutes that he's played so far in his postseason run is starting to catch up to him, but also the level of physicality that is being played from Hartenstein also played a factor in his impactfulness throughout the second and third game in the series, especially down the stretch where he wasn't able to get in proper positioning like he was in game one when Hartenstein didn't play that many minutes at all. I definitely believe they had a major role in his all-around impactfulness towards the tail end of the last two games. Furthermore, yes, there is questionable moments, Wemby in a half-court setting, him not getting to certain spots on the floor, and how impactful he can be as a jump shot shooter, again, playing extremely heavy minutes on the defensive side of the floor, while also once more having to fight through physical play from Hartenstein and everyone else. All that is also true, but I also find it very frustrating to know that you have a bunch of guards, and I will be a little bit lenient in game two, but in game three, when De'Aaron Fox came back, there's just not enough initiating to get Wemby in proper positioning, because that has been the only real consistent way for the defense to shift in a way that will then generate open opportunities for everyone else. Sure, the occasional screen and roll will work, but the way in which the Oklahoma City Thunder and their defense is tagging Wemby, it makes things much more difficult for even a veteran like De'Aaron Fox from preventing him from turning the ball over, which he did a few times in that game three. And also just all around, like Stephon Castle and Dylan Harper, they clearly don't have the reps without turning over the ball as much as they have when they're interacting with Wemby in pick and roll sets. And so I would like to see a 3-guard rotation and a head coach in Mitch Johnson put Wemby in certain positions to where he doesn't have to fight as much for positioning and just be far more impactful than he has been in the last two games towards the tail end of both outings. I think that would be beneficial for everybody if he can just get quality looks where he needs to get them, and more importantly, be able to impact the game beyond just being a screen and roller or someone popping at the 3-point line and roaming around or being stuck in the corner. But I'm gonna just be honest with you, brother, OKC is just a better team. Like, I do see a lot of people focusing way too much on fouls and officiating and Wemby not getting certain touches. Like, there's a reason why all these things are occurring on the floor, and it's because OKC is the better team. And even though I do believe Wemby's ceiling is a massive X factor that the Thunder are going to have to overcome if they want to finish this series off, regardless if it's in 6 or 7 games, it doesn't really matter. They are still the better team. They execute far better than the San Antonio Spurs. They understand their positioning on the floor on both sides far better than the San Antonio Spurs. They're better coach, and their superstar in Shai, he's just more equipped for postseason basketball, especially offensively, than Wemby is right now. The one thing that I have to give Mark Daigneault a lot of credit for is some of the rotations that he's using, smaller lineups, spacing out the floor, and in particular, the way in which he's moving shooters to cut across the lane that then causes some confusion and misunderstanding on who's supposed to pick up what assignment. I personally believe if you're Mitch Johnson, you don't have to always have Wemby guard the corners. There are multiple times where Lou Dort was on the floor way too often, and they got away with it just because Wemby by default is defending someone in the corner. And then there's situations where a shooter in the corner is now cutting across the lane. Wemby's trying to figure out, does he pick that player up? Another guard is trying to figure out, do they need to pick them up? Then they scramble, and then now you have a whole bunch of rotation happening, and Shai isn't really even making that many moves. Also, the double teaming of Shai has been, in my opinion, a bit too excessive, not only because Shai and his tough shot making hasn't been as consistent as I think the Thunder would like in the series, and because of that, there's a lot of scrambling to try to make up for that with some of the shooters on the team, and a lot of these players have really exceeded expectations. I mean, look at Alex Caruso shooting 61% from 3, Jalen Williams shooting 58% from 3, Cason Wallace 47%. Like, a lot of these players have really stepped up in response to Shai seeing a lot of aggressive double teams, and when that happens, I do believe that the Spurs have to kind of lay back on some of that doubling, and let's just see if Shai can beat them, because on open threes, threes, they're just getting burnt over and over and over again. And it doesn't really matter if Wemby's on the floor or not. There's multiple times where Wemby is just not going to step that far removed from the basket to go contest the three-point shot, not only by design, because who would have thought like Caruso would be knocking down threes to this level, but also there's a lot of decoy play that's happening where certain shooters are elevating and then kind of switching and cutting around the lane to get Wemby removed from the basket. And once that action happens and he's occupied on another side of the floor, that's when some of the action can then follow up with an easy look to the basket. So there's a lot of things that is happening, player movement, a lot of big shots being made from players that normally don't shoot this well in the series. And so even when Shai isn't hitting his shots at any level of consistency, so far this series, he's only making 39% of his shots. His all-around playmaking, the level of attention that he is getting, he is leveraging that in ways that then justifies a lot of these players getting open looks, making them, and then also forcing the Spurs to make some really tough decisions. Even the zone that they're running isn't really working that often. There's multiple times where Caruso just knows that he needs to flash in the middle, get the ball, and immediately make a decision to either a corner or someone at the rim throwing up a lob. Like, all of those things put the Spurs at such a disadvantage, to the point where even if you have Wemby on the floor, because how smart, educated, and well executed this team is on that side, it's going to be really difficult to just say we're going to sell out on Shai and just call it a day. You're going to have to execute far better, because that's what they're doing on the defensive side. And that is a far bigger reason why they are winning this series. Like, at the end of the day, they are the better team. They execute better. They're probably better coached as well. Like, there's a lot of things in which I may have undersold from OKC side. They have much more ways to win basketball games than the Spurs do as well. But there are ways in which you can respond. But OKC, their ability for their non-shooters to all of a sudden turn into shooters, Shai's ability to properly read defenses, which is much more improved than it was in years prior, something we talked about towards the tail end of the season. And the defense is just still hellacious. Like, they can just beat you by turning on the ball several different times. Personally, I don't think this series is going to end anytime soon. I think it's going to go to either a game 6 or a game 7. However, there is a path in which the Thunder don't lose another game and they wrap it up in 5. And if that happens, maybe not even that big of a surprise. I mean, they are, again, the better team. They just execute much better than San Antonio does. But hey, those are my thoughts. Please let me know yours in the comment section below. Also, if you want to watch this series alongside with me, I am live probably right now on Twitch. So go check me out, or probably live even on my other channel. I'm trying to dual stream, but check me out either way. Links in the description. And until next time, I'll see you all later. Peace.